Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how to install the Mountain Pass Performance comfort adjustable coilovers in the Tesla Model Y. And so the reason that I put these coilovers in was primarily because the ride quality in the stock suspension for the Model Y is not great. Certainly not what I was expecting, and I was hoping to improve it by changing over to these coilovers. So let's dive in. I'll show you, just kind of the installation process. We'll do some comparison videos, and we'll see what the results are.
Alright, so one thing that I wanted to do was actually try to show you what difference the coilovers actually make. So, there's a lot of subjective opinions when it comes to suspension. There's a lot of people that say, hey, I put these springs on, the car rides better. There's a lot of people that say, I put these coilovers on, the car rides great, or maybe they say it rides worse. But it's really hard to say with any certainty what you've done has actually made an improvement or made the ride quality worse. Because it is very subjective, there's a lot of variables, so it's just there's not a perfect way to test it unless you're in a controlled environment and you have expensive tools. So I wanted to at least try to do my best to represent, what we have stock and what we are going to do with the Mountain Pass Performance coilovers on the Model Y. So I've set up two cameras, one on the driver's seat to basically show, how the movements are affecting me. I have another camera set up on the passenger seat that will, hopefully give you an idea of how the landscape is changing. And then I also have a sound recorder set up to hopefully capture, any changes in noise. So basically what I'm trying to accomplish here is see, whether there's a visual or audio difference moving from the stock suspension to the coilovers. And that way I can give you a true representation of how much of a difference, if any, they make. So, I'm pretty convinced that they'll make a difference. I've had Mountain Pass Performance Comfort coilovers on my Model 3 before, and going back from, the coilovers to stock, there was, at least in my opinion, a pretty noticeable difference in ride quality. And also, as you may have seen, a lot of people's concerns with the stock Tesla suspension on the 3 and the Y does have to do with basically some ping-ponging almost at higher speeds, just hard repercussions, over sizable bumps or subsequent bumps. And I particularly noticed that in the Model Y. If you hit one bump, it doesn't really seem to affect it much, but if there's a series of bumps in a row, that's when it seems to kind of upset the suspension. So I'm genuinely curious to see what the results of this test are, and hopefully, there's a noticeable improvement. So let's take a ride. The roads right next to my house are actually really bad, which is good for the purposes of this test. So we'll go on a short loop, there and back, and see what we come up with. So just for clarification, HVAC is off. There's nothing in the car. So I've tried to make this as repeatable as possible. Alright, so that concludes our test with the stock suspension. So we'll get the coilovers installed, and we'll do another test, and we'll see how it compares. But I'm going to put the videos basically side by side so that you can kind of see it a direct comparison, so to speak. I'll obviously try to replicate what I just did in terms of my driving path and my speeds. So hopefully it'll be a pretty good comparison to, show the differences. So here we got the Mountain Pass Performance Model Y Comfort Coilovers. And let's see what we got in the box here. So we got a couple adjusters for the coils right there. And then we got some rebound adjustment for the front struts right here. And the first thing we see here is the rear struts. And as you can see, they've got rebound adjustment. As well as compression. Alright, now at the bottom of the box, we've got the front strut set up with the coils already over them. And then, of course, we've got the rear springs as well. And here is everything you get included in the box. I'd say the main thing that jumps out to me is these rear springs definitely seem to be a bit beefier than on the Model 3, which is probably a good thing given the extra weight. And we got the rear strut coming in at 6.6 pounds. Okay, we've got the rear spring with the adjuster coming in at 8.9 pounds. And the front strut with the spring is coming in at 13.1 pounds. And stock, 15.7 pounds for the front. Stock rear strut is 5.8 pounds. And the stock rear spring is 9.2 pounds. All right, before we do anything else, we're gonna take the front out. And because this is a relatively new build, we do have the HEPA filter. Fortunately, it's actually really easy to remove, thankfully. Alright, so next we're gonna basically just raise the car up. I will have to just take out this duct right here. Alright, and we're ready to lift the car. Alright, raise the car up. And we're ready to go. Okay, so here we've got our factory front upper control arm mount, the front upper control arm, and the spring and strut assembly. So first we're going to remove the three 13mm nuts from the top that hold the front upper control arm onto the spring and strut assembly. So we'll be able to move that out of the way. And then we will remove the nut that holds the top mount onto the spring and strut assembly. So we will be using a spring compressor so that the spring does not go flying. And at that point we should be ready to get started on the installation of the Mountain Pass Performance one. Here we've got the Mountain Pass Performance front spring and strut assembly. So we're going to go ahead and get that installed using the factory top hat right here. So the only difficult part of this, so to speak, is that we cannot use an impact to install these nuts. So we're just going to be careful and precise with our torque specs. The really nice part about the Mountain Pass products is that they basically reuse all of the existing factory hardware. So there's really no special adjustment or, aftermarket hardware that needs to be installed.
Everything just basically bolts right up and it comes pre-assembled. So that makes it really easy. The only thing we'll do is set our initial ride height. So at this point, we're just going to kind of take care of the details, so to speak. So we're going to fully torque the top nut. We're going to adjust the ride height. And then finally, we're going to adjust the rebound and compression. Alright, so front's all done. Now we get going on the rear. The rear is definitely quicker and easier than the front. It's really only about 5 bolts to actually, get everything out. And then swapping the top hat over on this one is in some ways easier, in some ways more difficult than the front. That's probably honestly the most time-consuming part of this job on the rear here. So let's jump on it. Alright, let me show you how to swap over to the top hat on this one. Alright, so you basically gotta hold the piston to keep it from spinning. Obviously, use something to protect the piston. You don't want to, mar it up. And then we'll just torque it. And then we'll put our lock nut on. And torque that. Alright, we'll set the rebound and compression, and set the ride height on the spring here, and we should be good to roll.
Hey everyone. Alright, so we've got the Mountain Pass Performance Comfort Coilovers installed on the Model Y. Now I've taken it for a couple drives, and, you know, to me, it does feel like a pretty big improvement. But again, that's really subjective, and of course, after you spend money and time to do something, you're naturally inclined to think that it's better because, well, you don't want to say it's not better, right? So hopefully what I can do here is take some recordings to compare to the ones we took with the stock suspension, and actually show, you know, clearly that there is a difference between the stock Model Y suspension and the Mountain Pass Performance suspension. So let's go for a ride, see what we can see. I've got the same camera set up on the same settings, same decibel recorder, and I'm gonna go on the same roads at the same time, and, you know, just try to duplicate the test as exactly as possible. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but it should be pretty close. So let's go for a ride and see how we do. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and put this video together and put them side by side and see what differences, if any, there were. You know, again, subjectively speaking, it definitely feels a lot better to me. Not getting that ping pong effect over, you know, over subsequent bumps. It's definitely a bit more stable at high speed. So all in all, I'm pretty happy. But, you know, let's check it out.
Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. And so kind of some of my final thoughts. The ride quality certainly improved with the Mountain Pass Performance comfort adjustable coilovers installed. The difference in the video is actually a lot more than I originally had realized. So looking at both angles, there's a pretty noticeable difference between the stock suspension and the Mountain Pass suspension. So certainly with just road oscillations, potholes, again, the roads around my house are pretty terrible, so it's a good test environment. But you can clearly see there's a difference. So that was exciting. And for what it's worth, this car was a September 2021 build. I put the coilovers in not too far after we took delivery. So this video is actually almost like a year later than I had originally intended on uploading it, but I just didn't have time. But on the bright side, I can say coilovers have held up great, even up here in New England with the sand and salt that is just always present in the winter. No rust or any sort of corrosion at all. So I'm happy to see that. And they're still performing pretty nice. I've had an opportunity to drive some newer build Model Ys. And while I do certainly think that the suspension has improved from the factory on those newer cars, there's still, a noticeable difference between the Mountain Pass stuff and even the more recent stock suspension. So if you're looking to, improve the comfort of your Model Y, I think this is a great path to go, and I'd strongly recommend it. So stick with the channel here, and we'll be releasing more content as we go. Thanks. See you next time.